I was sitting quietly in seat 14A, reading my book. Nobody knew my secret past. Then both pilots collapsed at 37,000 feet. People started screaming. The plane had no one to fly it. That is when 2 fighter jets appeared beside us. And when they spoke my old military call sign over the radio, I knew my secret was finished. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. I buckled my seatbelt in seat 14A and looked out the window. The airplane was getting ready to leave Los Angeles International Airport. It was 2:15 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. The sun was shining bright, and I could see workers loading luggage into the cargo hold below. I was wearing jeans and a gray sweater. My hair was in a simple bun. I looked like every other passenger on this flight to Boston. The flight attendant came by with her cart. She was a cheerful woman in her 40s with a warm smile. "Would you like something to drink before takeoff?" she asked. "Just water, please," I said quietly. She handed me a plastic cup of water and moved to the next row. She did not look at me twice. I was just another passenger to her. Nothing special, nothing interesting, just another face in the crowd of travelers heading east. The man in seat 14B sat down next to me. He was a businessman with a laptop bag and an expensive watch. "First time flying to Boston?" he asked, settling into his seat. "No, I have been there before," I said politely. "Business or vacation?" he continued, clearly wanting conversation. I paused for a second. "Just visiting family, nothing exciting." The man nodded enthusiastically and started talking about his job. He sold medical equipment to hospitals across the country. He talked a lot about sales numbers and client meetings. I listened politely and smiled, but I did not say much about myself. I had become very good at deflecting personal questions over the years. What he did not know was that I had spent the last 18 years as a fighter pilot in the United States Navy. I had flown F-18 Super Hornets off aircraft carriers in the middle of the ocean. I had completed over 200 combat missions in some of the most dangerous airspace in the world. My call sign was Hawk. Other pilots respected that name. Some even feared it. Young pilots whispered it in ready rooms with reverence. But I never told people this. I had retired from the Navy 3 months ago after 2 decades of service. Now I was trying to figure out what normal life looked like. What did a fighter pilot do when she stopped being a fighter pilot? So I sat in seat 14A, looking like an ordinary woman, and nobody knew my past. Nobody knew the medals in my storage unit. Nobody knew the missions I had flown. Nobody knew the lives I had saved. The young woman in seat 14C looked nervous. She was probably in her early 20s, with blonde hair and anxious eyes. Her hands were shaking as the plane started moving toward the runway. She kept gripping the armrests tightly. "I hate flying," she whispered to me, her voice trembling. "It makes me so scared. Every bump, every sound, everything freaks me out." I turned to her and smiled gently. "Flying is actually very safe. These planes are amazing machines. The pilots are highly trained professionals. You are safer here than driving on the highway. Trust me." She relaxed a little bit, taking a deep breath. "Really? You promise?" "Really," I said with confidence. "You will be fine. Just try to relax and enjoy the flight." She had no idea that I had landed fighter jets on moving aircraft carriers in the middle of storms with zero visibility. She had no idea that I had flown through enemy fire and survived situations that would have killed most pilots. She had no idea that I had once ejected from a damaged aircraft at 800 miles per hour and lived to fly again. She just saw a kind woman trying to make her feel better. The plane took off smoothly, climbing into the blue California sky. We climbed through the clouds and into the brilliant sunshine above. I always loved this moment, when the earth fell away and the aircraft became something graceful and free. The businessman next to me fell asleep quickly, his head leaning against the window. The nervous girl put on her headphones and watched a movie on the seatback screen. I opened my book and started reading. The flight leveled off at 37,000 feet. The captain made an announcement over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our cruising altitude. The weather looks good all the way to Boston. We should arrive on time at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Flight attendants, you may begin cabin service. Sit back and relax." His voice sounded confident and professional. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Just another routine transcontinental flight. I went back to my book. It was a mystery novel about a detective solving a murder case. I enjoyed reading, but my mind kept wandering. I was still getting used to civilian life. After 18 years of structure, discipline, and purpose, retirement felt strange. Empty. Uncertain. I missed the adrenaline. I missed the mission. I missed being part of something bigger than myself. About 90 minutes into the flight, something went terribly wrong. I heard a flight attendant's voice over the intercom. She sounded worried, trying to stay calm but failing. "Is there a doctor on board? We have a medical emergency in the cockpit. I repeat, we need a doctor immediately." People started looking around nervously, whispering to each other. The calm atmosphere of the flight changed instantly to tension. A man 3 rows ahead stood up quickly. "I am a doctor," he said, grabbing his bag. The flight attendant rushed him toward the front of the plane, moving fast. Everyone in the cabin became quiet. We all knew something bad was happening. You could feel the fear spreading through the cabin like a wave. 5 minutes passed. Then 10 minutes. The tension grew unbearable. The nervous girl next to me grabbed my hand tightly. "What is happening?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I do not know," I said. But my military training was already kicking in. I was listening carefully to every sound. Watching everything. My body was calm, but my mind was running through scenarios and possibilities. Then the intercom clicked on again. This time, the flight attendant's voice was shaking badly. She could barely control her panic. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an emergency situation. Both pilots are unconscious. If there is anyone on board with flight experience, please identify yourself immediately. This is urgent." The cabin erupted in panic. People started screaming. Some were crying loudly. Others sat frozen in shock. The businessman next to me woke up, confused and scared. "What? What is happening? Did she just say both pilots?" My heart was pounding, but my mind was perfectly clear. This was the moment. This was when all my training mattered. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stood up quickly. "I have flight experience," I said loudly and clearly. A flight attendant ran down the aisle to me, her face pale. "What kind of experience?" she asked urgently, breathing hard. "Military aviation," I said crisply. "Fighter jets. 18 years. United States Navy. I can fly this plane." Her eyes went wide with shock and relief. "Come with me. Now. Please hurry." I followed her to the front, walking quickly through the cabin. Behind me, I heard the businessman say in disbelief, "She said she was just visiting family. She looked so normal." The senior flight attendant, whose name tag said Patricia, met me at the cockpit door. Her hands were shaking. "Both pilots collapsed about 10 minutes ago," she said quickly, her words rushing out. "The doctor thinks it is food poisoning from their crew meal. They both ate the same fish. They are unconscious but still breathing. The plane is on autopilot right now, but we don't know what to do." "Okay," I said calmly. "Let me see the cockpit. Open the door." She opened the door with trembling hands. I stepped inside. Both pilots were slumped over in their seats, completely unconscious. The plane was flying itself on autopilot, holding altitude and heading perfectly. But autopilot could not land the plane. Someone had to do that manually. Someone with training and skill. I slid into the captain's seat after the flight attendants pulled the unconscious pilot out and laid him on the cockpit floor. I looked at the instrument panel carefully. This was a Boeing 737. I had never flown a 737 before. Fighter jets were completely different machines. But the basic principles of flight were the same. Physics did not change. Lift, thrust, drag, and gravity worked the same way in every aircraft. I could do this. I had to do this. There was no other option. I reached for the radio and switched to the emergency frequency. My hand was steady. My voice was calm. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is United Flight 447, Boeing 737 en route from Los Angeles to Boston. Both pilots are unconscious due to suspected food poisoning. I am a passenger with military flight experience. I have assumed control of the aircraft and request immediate assistance. There was a brief silence on the radio. Then a voice came back, professional but shocked. United 447, this is Los Angeles Center. Confirm both pilots are unconscious and you are a passenger. Affirmative, I said clearly. I am a former Navy pilot. I flew F-18 Super Hornets for 18 years. I have over 3,000 flight hours in military aircraft. I have never flown a 737 specifically, but I understand flight systems and instruments. I need technical assistance for landing procedures. United 447, we copy. Can you tell us your name and rank? I hesitated for just a moment. Then I said, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Hayes, United States Navy, retired. Call sign Hawk. Another silence, longer this time. I could almost feel the shock on the other end. Then a different voice came on the radio. This voice sounded amazed and excited. Hawk. Is this really Hawk? I frowned, confused. Affirmative. Who is this? Ma'am, this is Captain Jenkins at the Air Force Base near Los Angeles. We are scrambling 2 F-22 Raptors to escort you and provide visual assistance. We heard your call sign and, ma'am, everyone in military aviation knows who you are. We are going to get you down safely. You have our word. My chest tightened with emotion. Even in retirement, even 3 months after leaving the service, my reputation had followed me. The name Hawk still meant something. I appreciate that, Captain. But right now I need technical help with this specific aircraft. I need someone who knows the Boeing 737 inside and out. Copy that, Hawk. Stand by. We are connecting you with a Boeing technical expert right now. Within minutes, a new voice came on the radio. This voice was female, calm, and extremely knowledgeable. Her name was Lisa. She had flown commercial jets for 25 years before retiring to work for Boeing as a technical consultant. Commander Hayes, she said warmly, I am going to walk you through everything step by step. The 737 is a very stable, forgiving aircraft. With your background and skills, you can definitely do this. I have complete confidence in you. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I am ready. Let's do this. Lisa started explaining the systems methodically. The Boeing 737 was much bigger and heavier than my fighter jet. It responded slower to control inputs. Everything happened in slow motion compared to the instant response of a fighter. But the basic concepts were identical: airspeed, altitude, pitch, roll, and power management. First, let's check your fuel situation, Lisa said. Look at the fuel gauge on your center console between the seats. I found it quickly. We have about 2 hours of fuel remaining. Good. That gives us plenty of time to set this up properly. Now, where are you currently located? I checked the GPS navigation display. We are over Nevada, still heading east toward Boston. Okay. We are going to turn you around and bring you back to Los Angeles. The weather is absolutely perfect there right now. Long runways. Full emergency services standing by. It's your best option. Understood, I said. What's my first step? As I began to work with Lisa, learning the aircraft systems, I heard a new voice on the radio. Hawk, this is Viper. We are two F-22 Raptors approaching your position from the south. We will be your escort all the way to the ground. I looked out the cockpit window. Two sleek F-22 Raptors pulled into perfect formation on either side of my Boeing 737. They were beautiful aircraft, angular and deadly. Seeing them brought back so many memories of my own time in fighters. The adrenaline, the precision, the brotherhood of military aviation. Viper, this is Hawk. I have you visual. Thanks for the escort. Ma'am, Viper said, and his voice was filled with deep respect and awe, it is an honor to fly with you. We have heard stories about you since flight school. You are a legend in the fighter community. Everyone knows about the mission over Syria. Everyone knows what you did. Let's save the compliments until after I land this plane safely, I said. But I smiled a little bit, feeling a warmth in my chest. The other F-22 pilot spoke up. Her call sign was Phoenix. Hawk, we have your back completely. You have got this. We believe in you. With Lisa's careful guidance, I began turning the massive aircraft around. It was like steering a huge bus compared to my nimble fighter jet. Everything happened slower. The aircraft took time to respond to my inputs. But I adjusted my thinking and my touch, learning the rhythm of this new machine. Okay, Hawk, Lisa said. You are doing great. Your turn rate is perfect. Now we need to start descending gradually. I am going to talk you through every single step of this approach and landing. For the next 40 minutes, Lisa walked me through the descent procedure with incredible patience and clarity. We had to reduce altitude gradually to avoid stressing the airframe. We had to slow down carefully to maintain stability. We had to configure the aircraft for landing by extending flaps and slats at specific speeds and altitudes. At 10,000 feet, you will need to extend your flaps, Lisa explained. There is a lever on your right side near the throttles. You will move it to position 1 first. I found the lever and moved it. Flaps position 1. Good. That will give you more lift but also more drag. You will need to adjust your throttle to maintain your target speed of 250 knots. I made the throttle adjustment smoothly. The plane responded exactly as she said it would. I was starting to feel the aircraft, to understand its personality. In the cabin behind me, Patricia was keeping the passengers as calm as possible under the circumstances. But everyone knew their lives were in the hands of a woman who had been sitting in seat 14A reading a book just 2 hours ago. The nervous girl from 14C was crying and praying. The businessman was gripping his armrest with white knuckles. Others sat in stunned silence, some holding hands with strangers, united in fear and hope. As I descended through 15,000 feet, I could see Los Angeles in the distance, sprawling across the landscape. The airport was clearing all other traffic from the airspace. Emergency vehicles were lining up along the runway, fire trucks, ambulances, rescue equipment. News helicopters were circling at a safe distance, filming everything. Hawk, Viper said from his F-22, you are looking perfect. Your descent rate is smooth. Your approach angle is spot on. You are flying this like you have done it 1,000 times. Thanks, Viper, I said, my hand steady on the controls. This is just flying. And flying is what I do best. It's what I have always done best. Lisa continued her instructions calmly. At 5,000 feet, extend your flaps to position 2. Then at 3,000 feet, position 3. Your landing gear will go down at 2,000 feet. I will tell you exactly when. I followed each instruction precisely, like a checklist from my fighter pilot days. The Boeing 737 was responding well. I could feel the aircraft now. I could sense what it needed. We were becoming one machine, working together. Hawk, you are cleared to land on runway 25 left, the tower controller said. Wind is calm at 5 knots. Visibility is 10 miles. Perfect conditions. Emergency equipment is standing by, but we don't think you will need it. You are doing everything right. Copy, tower, runway 25 left. Thank you. At 2,000 feet, I extended the landing gear. I heard and felt the 3 sets of wheels lock into position below me with solid thuds. The airport was getting closer. I could see the runway clearly now, a long strip of concrete waiting for me. Your speed looks good, Lisa said encouragingly. You want to cross the runway threshold at 140 knots. Then reduce to 130 as you flare for touchdown. Keep your descent rate at 700 feet per minute until you are 50 feet above the runway. Understood. 140 knots over the threshold. The F-22s stayed in perfect formation with me until I was on final approach. Then they peeled off gracefully, giving me clear space to land. It was a beautiful sight, a final salute from my fellow warriors. Hawk, you are looking beautiful, Phoenix said, emotion clear in her voice. Bring her home safe. You can do this. I focused completely on the runway ahead. Everything else disappeared from my awareness. It was just me and the aircraft and the concrete rushing up to meet me. This was the moment. This was what all my training had prepared me for. At 500 feet, I was perfectly aligned with the center line of the runway. At 200 feet, my speed was exactly right at 145 knots. At 50 feet, I began to flare, pulling the nose up gently to reduce my descent rate. At 20 feet, I continued the flare, feeling for the ground. At 10 feet, I held it steady, waiting for the perfect moment. The main wheels touched the runway so smoothly that passengers barely felt it. It was like landing on butter. I immediately deployed the thrust reversers and applied the brakes firmly but smoothly. The Boeing 737 slowed down quickly and controllably. I had plenty of runway left when I brought the aircraft to a complete stop. I sat there for a long moment. My hands were still on the controls. My heart was pounding hard in my chest. I could feel adrenaline coursing through my body. I had done it. Everyone was safe. 189 people would go home to their families tonight. The radio erupted with voices, all talking at once. Hawk, that was the most beautiful landing I have ever seen in my entire career, Viper said, his voice thick with emotion. Ma'am, you just saved 189 people with a skill level I cannot even comprehend, Lisa said, and she was crying openly now. That was absolutely incredible. Perfect. Flawless. The tower controller added, his voice shaking, Commander Hayes, in 30 years of air traffic control, I have never witnessed anything like that. You are extraordinary. You are a hero. I keyed the microphone one last time. Thank you all for your help and guidance. I could not have done it without every single one of you. This was a team effort. Emergency crews surrounded the plane immediately. Paramedics rushed on board to treat the unconscious pilots, who were already starting to regain consciousness. Both pilots would recover fully in the hospital after treatment for severe food poisoning. I stood up from the captain's seat slowly, my legs a bit shaky now that the adrenaline was wearing off. I walked back into the cabin. Every single passenger was staring at me with expressions of awe, gratitude, and disbelief. Many were crying with relief. Some started clapping. Then everyone was clapping, a thunderous applause that filled the cabin. The nervous girl from 14C ran up to me and hugged me tightly, sobbing. You saved us, she cried. You saved all of us. I thought we were going to die. I was so scared. But you saved us. I hugged her back gently. You are safe now. Everyone is safe. The businessman shook his head in complete disbelief. You said you were just visiting family. You looked so ordinary. How did you do that? I smiled tiredly. I am visiting family. But first I had to land this plane. Sometimes life gives you unexpected detours. Patricia grabbed my hands, tears streaming down her face. How can we ever thank you, she asked. You gave us our lives back. Our futures, our families, everything. You do not need to thank me, I said sincerely. I just did what anyone with my training would do. I had the skills that were needed at this moment. That's all. But that was not entirely true. Not many people could have done what I just did. It took years of experience, countless hours in the air, and the kind of calm under pressure that only came from facing death many times before and surviving. As passengers began leaving the plane down the emergency stairs, many stopped to thank me personally. Some hugged me. Some shook my hand. Some just looked at me with grateful, tearful eyes that said more than words ever could. When I finally stepped off the plane, there was a crowd waiting on the tarmac. Reporters with cameras, airport officials, military personnel. And standing at the front were two F-22 pilots in their flight suits, standing at attention. Viper stepped forward and saluted me sharply. Ma'am, it was the greatest honor of my career to fly with you today. To escort you. To witness that landing. I will tell my children and grandchildren about this day. Phoenix saluted too, her eyes shining. Hawk, you are everything they say you are and more. Thank you for showing us what real flying looks like. What real courage looks like. I saluted them both back, feeling a lump in my throat. Thank you both for the escort. You made me feel safe up there. You reminded me that I am never alone in the sky. The news crews pushed forward with dozens of questions, all shouting at once. Commander Hayes, how did you land a plane you have never flown before? What were you thinking during the landing? Do you feel like a hero? Will you come out of retirement? I held up my hand to quiet them. I am not a hero. I am just a passenger who happened to have the right training at the right time. The real heroes are the air traffic controllers who guided me. The Boeing expert who talked me through every step. The F-22 pilots who escorted me. The flight attendants who kept everyone calm. I could not have done it without them. This was a team effort, not a solo achievement. But the media did not see it that way. By that evening, my story was on every news channel in the country and around the world. Former fighter pilot saves 189 people. Passenger in 14A turns out to be Navy legend. Call sign Hawk lands Boeing 737 safely in emergency. Military hero saves commercial flight. The video of my landing, filmed from news helicopters and ground cameras, went viral on social media. It showed the Boeing 737 touching down perfectly while two F-22s flew overhead in salute, a stunning image that captured the imagination of millions. My phone started ringing constantly with interview requests. Book deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Movie offers from Hollywood. Speaking engagements. The Navy even called personally to ask if I wanted to come back to active duty. They said they would give me any assignment I wanted. I declined everything politely but firmly. I just wanted to continue my trip to visit my sister in Boston. I wanted to process what had happened. I wanted to figure out what this meant for my future. But 2 weeks later, I received a package at my sister's house. Inside was a custom flight suit patch. It showed a Hawk flying over a Boeing 737, with two F-22s information behind it. The details were beautiful and precise. There was a note attached, signed by 23 Navy and Air Force pilots from bases all across the country, to Commander Rachel Hawk Hayes, who showed the world what we already knew, that you are one of the finest pilots of our generation. Your legend continues. Your call sign will be spoken with respect forever. Fair winds and following seas, always. I sat on my sister's couch, holding that patch and crying quietly. I had spent 18 years proving myself. Fighting for respect in a male-dominated field, earning a call sign through excellence that nobody could deny, breaking barriers, setting records, saving lives. And now, in retirement, I had one more time proven that Hawk was not just a call sign. It was who I was at my core. It was my identity. It was my purpose. My sister sat down beside me and put her arm around my shoulders. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I said, wiping my eyes and smiling. "I am okay. I thought I was done with all of that. I thought I could just be a normal person now. Just Rachel. Not Hawk." She smiled warmly. "Rachel, you saved 189 people yesterday. You landed a plane you had never flown before. You stayed calm when everyone else was panicking. You are not a normal person. You never were. And that is not a bad thing." "I was just sitting in seat 14A, I said softly. "Just a passenger reading a book." "No," my sister said firmly, squeezing my hand. "You were never just a passenger. You were Hawk, waiting quietly for the moment when you were needed again. And when that moment came, you answered the call. Like you always do." The passengers of United Flight 447 formed a group chat online. They invited me to join. Every week, someone would post a message thanking me. Sharing photos of their families. Telling me about life events they almost missed, weddings, graduations, births of grandchildren. The nervous girl from 14C sent me a message 6 months later, "I am taking flying lessons now. You inspired me to face my fear. If I can overcome my terror of flying and become a pilot myself, I will have you to thank. You changed my life." The businessman wrote, "I quit my sales job and started a non-profit charity for aviation safety. You taught me that life is too short to waste on things that do not matter. Thank you for my second chance at life." 1 year later, I attended a reunion of all the passengers. All 189 people who had been on that flight came to Los Angeles for the anniversary. They had raised money for a scholarship fund in my name. It would help young women become pilots, breaking down the barriers that still existed in aviation. "You gave us our lives back that day," Patricia said during her speech at the reunion, her voice emotional. "Now we want to give other women the chance to follow in your footsteps. To become pilots. To break barriers. To save lives like you did." I stood up to speak, feeling overwhelmed with emotion. "I was just sitting in seat 14A that day," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I was not planning to do anything extraordinary. I was just a passenger trying to figure out what came next in my life after retirement. But then I was needed. And I did what I was trained to do. That is all. Anyone with my training would have done the same thing." "That is not all," someone called out from the crowd. "You showed us what courage looks like. What skill looks like. What real heroism looks like. You saved our lives." I smiled through my tears. "If you want to honor me, then honor all the people who serve quietly every day. The pilots who fly safely without recognition, the air traffic controllers who keep us safe, the mechanics who maintain these incredible machines, the flight attendants who care for passengers. They are the real heroes of aviation." But in my heart, I knew the truth. I knew that I had been given an extraordinary gift that day. The gift of purpose, the gift of using my skills to save lives, the gift of being Hawk one more time when it mattered most. I eventually took a job as a flight instructor at a naval aviation school. I taught young pilots how to fly fighters. How to land on carriers in bad weather, how to stay calm under pressure, how to be excellent, how to earn respect through skill, not through asking for it. And sometimes, when I was teaching a class, a young pilot would raise their hand and ask, "Is it true that you landed a Boeing 737 after both pilots collapsed?" I would smile and say simply, yes, that happened. How did you stay so calm? They would ask with wide eyes. How did you do it? Because I had faith in my training, I would answer seriously. I had faith in the people helping me from the ground. And I had faith that if I did everything right, everyone would survive. That is what being a pilot means. You do not panic. You do not give up. You assess the situation. You make a plan. And you execute that plan perfectly. You solve the problem, no matter what. Years passed. The story of Flight 447 became legendary in aviation circles worldwide. It was taught in flight schools as a perfect example of crew resource management and emergency procedures. The landing video was analyzed frame by experts who marveled at my technique and precision. But for me, it was always just one day. One moment when I was needed. One time when being Hawk mattered more than anything else in the world. One time when my skills made the difference between life and death for 189 people. I never regretted leaving the Navy. But I also never forgot what it felt like to be in that cockpit, with 189 lives depending on me, knowing that I had the skills to save them. Knowing that my training, my experience, my thousands of hours in the air all came down to this one moment. That is what legends are made of. Not from seeking glory or fame. Not from wanting attention or recognition. But from being ready when called. From having skills so deep they become instinct. From caring enough about others to risk everything. From answering the call when it comes, even when you are just sitting in seat 14A trying to be invisible. I was just a passenger in seat 14A that day. Until I was not. Until I became Hawk again. And I saved everyone. 10 years have passed since that day. I am still teaching at the Naval Aviation School. I have trained over 500 new pilots. Many of them have gone on to fly combat missions. Some have become instructors themselves. They carry forward the lessons I taught them. Last month, I received a letter from Emma, the nervous girl from seat 14C. She is now a commercial airline pilot flying Boeing 737s. She wrote, "Every time I sit in the captain's seat, I think of you. I think of how you turned fear into courage. How you showed me that women belong in the cockpit. I have now safely transported over 50,000 passengers. Every single one of them owes their safety partly to you, because you inspired me to become who I am today." The Boeing 737 that I landed that day still flies. The airline never retired it. Pilots consider it a lucky aircraft. Some even request to fly it specifically. They say it carries the spirit of that miraculous day. My nephew, who was 10 years old when Flight 447 happened, just graduated from the Air Force Academy. He wants to be a fighter pilot. He told me, "Aunt Rachel, you showed me what it means to serve. What it means to be ready. What it means to be excellent at what you do. I want to earn my own call sign someday, just like you earned Hawk." I still fly sometimes, in small planes at local airports. I take the controls and feel the wind and remember who I used to be. Who I still am deep inside. The sky is still my home. It always will be. Sometimes people recognize me at airports. They stop me and say thank you. Some cry. Some just shake my hand silently. I always tell them the same thing, I was just doing what I was trained to do. Anyone would have done the same. But we both know that is not true. Not everyone could have done what I did. And that is okay. We all have different gifts. Different purposes, different moments when we are called to be more than we think we are. I was just a passenger in seat 14A. But when the moment came, I was ready. And that made all the difference.